Hello and welcome to Kohler Commentary. Today I invite Doris Jeong onto the pod to share about her life experiences that shaped her into the strong woman that she is today. Doris and I met through a mutual friend, Julie, who I had gone to college with back at UT. And Doris had visited Julie a few times since they were childhood besties in Seattle, and she was always a good time. Doris still resides in Seattle and currently works in tech. And she also identifies as a person with dwarfism, and I'm grateful that she can come on to share a perspective that many of us might not be familiar with. So without further ado, welcome Doris.
Hello. Hi,
Hi.
Angie.
After many technical difficulties, we are on, and I think it's going to be the best sound possible. So woohoo.
Yay, finally.
Yeah, as we were saying earlier, we had been trying to do this since last summer. And unfortunately, things kind of happened in between. I had originally wanted Doris's episode to release in October for Dwarfism Awareness Month, but I'm excited that we can still make time to do this. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
Well, before we go further, I would like you to share with the listeners who Doris is and if you can just briefly introduce yourself and parts of your upbringing.
I feel like you did a good intro for me, but I will attempt it. I am just your 30-something-year-old working in the legal department for a tech company, like you said. Honestly, I feel like my life is pretty basic other than the medical condition that I was born with, which has given me some very, I guess, esoteric perspective on life. Other than work, I like doing your typical, traveling before COVID happened, of course.
Right.
I'm a big foodie and I do like doing a lot of creative things, which I haven't had a chance to because I've been trying to settle into this newer job. But I do consider myself a creative. And my upbringing, I guess you can say it was your quote, typical second generation Korean American immigrant child's upbringing, doing the whole church on Sundays and then youth group on Fridays. When you start getting, to be like a teenager, I went to the local state college around here. And then now I just work at another company right here in Seattle. So honestly, it sounds very boring and basic. And
But you get
I
to
kind
do
of
that in
like that.
Seattle. Yeah. I feel like for someone from Texas, living life in Seattle just seems like way cooler. But,
Really?
maybe,
I don't know.
yeah, there's like
I feel
nature
like you've been
and
biased from Julie.
yeah, because she will like never come back. Maybe hoping for a child number two so that will make her end up moving. Maybe would you ever move to Texas?
I would never.
Okay. Okay. Just trying to throw out some feelers. Why would you not move to Texas?
I think it's because I need to be by the ocean.
Oh,
I feel
okay.
like it would just kind of, Texas is like a huge land. So it sounds stupid to say I would feel, what is it, kind of trapped. But I think mentally that is how I would feel, kind of taptape, like not being by a coast.
Yeah, you guys get water and land, mountain
Yeah.
beauty. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. We're going to dive into the Enneagram part first in our episode today, and then you can continue to elaborate. But you are an Enneagram 4. Do you know what that is?
I forget what like the tagline name is, but yes, I'm a 4.
You are an introspective individualist or a romanticist, as some might say. Definitely, like you shared about yourself earlier, definitely the creatives, likes to innovate, have some unique or artsy view into life as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you fully identified as a 4 before we go deeper.
I fully do.
Okay, so the thing that I've been talking about on the Enneagram portion of my episodes this year have been about the childhood message and what we might have interpreted growing up. And so for an Enneagram 4, there might have been an interpreted message that was that it is not okay to be too functional or too happy. And I sent you that question ahead of time and I was wondering if that was something you resonated and or if there was a memory that you could attach to that.
I think I do relate to it, and it's kind of been like a lifelong thing. And until I read it written in words like that, I think I didn't know that's kind of what I was doing or thinking. Because
Mm.
even when things are going, really well for me, I've always had this weird, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to call it guilt, but just this like awareness or like introspective thinking I do where I'm like, wow, how come I got so lucky? Like because I'm aware that there are a lot of other kids in Korea who are born with dwarfism, and they are in orphanages.
Mm.
And before the whole, Korea like closed their adoption, international adoptions or something like that. I'm not too
Oh.
aware of it, but there are a lot of little people, children adoptions from Korea. And so a lot
Oh.
of times when people meet me for the first time, a lot of people assume I'm adopted.
Oh.
And I'm not. And that's not to say adoption is bad or anything like that at all. In fact, I think it's like such a beautiful blessing. And if I'm able, I would like to adopt one day as well. But it's just something I noticed, and I thought it was interesting that people do often assume this. I live with my very full blooded Korean parents. And so it's just kind of things like that. I start thinking and then I go down a rabbit hole and I'm like, it could have been me. And it's not that I don't think I deserve, to have this peace or happiness, but it's more like, well, how come I have this but others don't? It's kind of that mindset where I'm like, I can't just let myself enjoy the good moment. So that's kind of an example I
Mm.
thought of.
So sometimes you tell yourself you can't be to this or to that, but you have to appreciate the life kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah, kind of like that.
Oh, in those times when you do have those encounters with people and they assume the adoption portion, what is your reaction or response to them in that moment?
Oh, I'm just like, oh, I mean, there's a lot of assumptions that come with, when you meet a little person for the first time. It's not just that, there's also like, people assume my parents are little people.
Mm.
So I mean, usually I just am friendly about it and I tell them
Mhm.
exactly what it is, just the factual. Like, no, my parents are my parents and we're all Korean and they're not little people.
Okay. So with that message of it's not okay to be too functional or too happy, and we kind of like start to picture those memories like you shared from the past, how might that still be a message you play out today as an adult?
Okay, so I think, as I get older, I've been trying to stray away from that mentality.
Mm.
And I think I have been successful at it or like starting to be successful. But that's also after like many years of therapy. So
Mm.
I'm trying to allow myself to just, be happy when I am happy and proud of my accomplishments or, yeah, just allow myself to be happy because that's always been very difficult for me.
Can you share, like, as you, I guess, navigated, whether it's for Enneagram, your core fear might be being inadequate, emotionally cut off, mundane, defective, or insignificant. So, a lot about identity plays a part in Enneagram 2, 3, or 4. I'm curious, like, how does that translate into a core longing that Enneagram 4s often want to hear, which is that you are loved and seen for exactly who you are, special and unique? Does that message resonate with you, and what might that look like?
Yeah, it really does resonate with me because I think, hold on, so what was the mundane part thing you said? Yeah.
Yeah, so Enneagram 4s, right? They bring a lot of unique beauty and depth and creativity to the world. So their fear is actually being inadequate or mundane or insignificant. Those are a lot of the parts of fear. So that the longing is that they're seen for who they are, which is
Okay.
special and unique.
Yes, I really, really relate to that because, like, when I first even heard about Enneagram and then I, found out I'm a four, I was laughing because it's so accurate. Because I've always said, like, my biggest fear in life is that I just live a mundane life and
So
I don't
exactly
do,
the fear, yeah.
yeah, literally like verbatim, and that I am not gonna be or accomplish something significant. And that I think a large part of that, though, I only realized this like recently, like literally like last year.
Mm.
Um, yes, it's also because it's a very Enneagram 4 personality thing, but I think a large part of that came from the fact I have been trying to always like prove myself to society that you can be tiny and have dwarfism like me and still do, quote, great things. And I felt like that was such a huge, like being great, being accomplished, doing something significant. I think that was a huge driving factor for everything I did.
Mm.
Everything from just getting straight A's in school, being a good student, going to college, getting a good job, blah, blah, blah. But then what I learned is that it's so tiring.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't realize that until therapy a few years ago when I started. And like, so now I'm kind of opposite. I'm like, I am so okay with just living like a mundane life.
Mm.
Like, that's totally okay. I don't, because even when I was like in college, I had these like way too big dreams. And that's not to say like don't dream big. Of course, you should always dream big. And, that's good to always have life goals. And I'm not saying like be lazy and kill your dreams either. But like I was super ambitious. And I had all these like, ooh, going to be some like prominent international figure for justice and for the disability community, blah, blah. But I'm like, I'm so tired, like just going to work my 9 to 5, and it's okay. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't need to be, Doris Jeong, this international figure, like this social justice figure. Like, that's not all on me.
Right.
And I think that is something I realized last year, that it's okay. Like, I'm still wholly me and special and unique, even if I just go to my 9 to 5 job. Like, you
Yes.
know what I mean? And that's something I have been actively trying to embrace, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
Was that like an aha moment at therapy, or was that like after just years of processing, you guys got to that place together?
I
That's
think
like, I
at
feel like that's
first,
such a freeing thought. That's so freeing to be able
yeah,
to accept that and declare that.
it was an aha moment, but not directly during a therapy session. I was driving home from my friends, just like a random Saturday after hanging out. And I do a lot of thinking in the car and then in the shower.
Mhm.
And I was just thinking all my usual introspective thoughts. And then it just kind of, yeah, it was an aha moment. I think I was listening to another podcast. I don't know. It was like some fashion or fashion influencer. I can't remember. And I found myself like not interested in it at all. I don't know if you remember, Angie, like even when I first met you, I was super into fashion and,
Mhm.
trying to do the whole like inclusive fashion for all. Like I was really into that, which is how I started my blog.
Right.
And this aha moment and this realization has made me think like, what is Doris Jung's actual interests, not the interest that she was making herself have to be the significant person.
Mm.
So I'm like, I remember I was listening to the podcast episode and I'm like, I just don't care about fashion like I used to anymore. And I think that goes
Mm.
for a lot of some of the other things. And I'm not saying that in like a depression way where like nothing interests me anymore. It's not that, because I do have interests, but I think I'm just trying to navigate like what is actually me versus, me trying to be this great Enneagram 4, I guess is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
No, that makes total sense. And it sounds like you had a high wing three, which is like achiever ambition to like create this image too, to create your special identity for
Mm-hmm.
who you are. And so it's cool how you use that to your strength when it was a huge dream, but also recognizing it doesn't have to be like that all day, every day. And you can take time to rest. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that, and just cool that you can come to that realization.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to add, yeah, I don't know why. I felt like I had this responsibility to,
Right.
show everybody that, oh, little people can also be successful, can work in whatever field they want. They can also dress nice. They can travel, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why I felt like that's all on me, because it's not.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's a huge weight probably
Yep.
lifted off of you. If you think you might be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, BetterHelp, the sponsor of this episode, is here for you. BetterHelp offers a broad range of over 20,000 licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Plus, you can get 10% off your first month with my code, betterhelp.com/Kohler. With BetterHelp, you can talk to your therapist in a private online environment at your convenience, and all you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs before getting matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Then you schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages and everything you share is completely confidential. As a mom constantly working around Jaden's toddler schedule, having my weekly therapy online has been a complete game changer and a huge reason why I have made big steps to better my mental health for myself and for my family. You can also request a new therapist anytime at no additional charge. Join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Don't forget to use my code to get that 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kohler. That's better, HELP.com/Kohler. I want to talk more about those things because you have done some crazy awesome things too that I would like to celebrate on the podcast. But after kind of just giving a sneak peek into your Enneagram, and you can definitely elaborate as we talk, I wanted to kind of start back from the beginning. If you can share your journey with Dwarfism from when you were younger and when you might have started to realize that you might be different in a sense from your peers in a visible way.
So I didn't know anything about my condition. I didn't know anybody else. I have never seen anybody else except I think that guy on Jackass long time ago. I forget
Mm.
his name, like Wee Man or something. And then every now and then in public, like maybe like once every like few years, I would see somebody. I didn't even know what my diagnosis was. Nothing about it until I would order the 17 magazine subscriptions. And I was 15 and there was an article on a little person and I was just like, oh my gosh. Like the first time ever like reading about it, looking into it, and being the naturally curious digger I am,
Mhm.
and with our dial-up internet, I started like looking into it. Was a very short article too, just like one page. But it did mention the girl they wrote on. Like she mentioned the Little People of America organization. So I looked it up, and then before I knew it, that summer, my parents and I were driving down to San Francisco for the national convention,
Wow.
and it was a weird experience. Like I didn't know how to be, as weird as
Mm,
that sounds. And because I was like, no, I didn't have other friends who were little people. You know, my parents are Korean. It's not like they sat me down and talked to me about it. Like nobody just talked about it. I was just tiny
right.
and short. Yeah, I went to my first convention and I thankfully did meet some lifelong friends that I do still keep in touch with. And then I remember in junior high, one of my best friends said, she asked me, Dora, you're not a midget, right? Like you're just small, but like proportion. And I clearly remember I said, yeah, because the midget, the M word is, even though like nobody told me, every time someone would use it, I would feel weird. I would tense up. So it's
Mm,
like I subconsciously knew it was derogatory. And I do think looking back, it was a little bit of, I don't know what you call it, like internalized dwarphobia. I don't know what you'd call it. Because when she said that, I was like, oh, yeah, totally. But midget just means a person of short stature, but derogatory.
right.
And so her question didn't even make sense. But I was like, yeah, exactly. And I still
Mm,
remember that moment because I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not one of them. I'm just proportionate and small. But no, I am a person with dwarfism. So
mm,
it's like a ridiculous exchange when I think about it now. And I haven't really been involved with the LPA organization, but I just kind of keep in touch with my friends, like, just separately, like we
yeah.
all do with our friends. So I am very, lucky that I did meet some good people that I know I'll be friends with forever.
Can I ask, when you did go
Yeah.
to that huge convention where it's the first time you're surrounded with people of the same like
Mhm.
stature as you, also like you touched upon, we're children of immigrants, right? Who also like racially sometimes there is like a overwhelming sense when it's not a lot of Koreans or Asians. Like what was the demographic at the convention? Was it overwhelming in more ways than one for you?
Oh yeah, it's majority white,
Mm.
and there were a few Koreans, and the ones I met are all adopted.
Oh,
And the one friend that I ended up spending most of that week with, having genuine connection, like that's what I was looking for.
right.
She was Chinese,
Mm,
and her parents were her biological parents. I remember like one of the nights we were just up all night just talking. But
right.
for the most part, it's very predominantly white or white adopted.
Yeah, it's crazy because like you go somewhere to like, find connection, but even in that kind of pool, it's like you have to find a connection that really speaks to you. I'm glad you were
Hmm.
able to find someone that really got to connect in that way, but yeah, I was just trying to put myself in your shoes, and I feel like there's so many overwhelming factors that was probably like playing in like teenage Dora's mind, like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
thing. Okay, so as you continue to like internally navigate this identity, how did you start like owning that identity, right? Like as you shared that kind of ridiculous exchange with your friend, and like as you learn even yourself, like no, like how do I respond to people in times of like ignorance or not knowing,
Hmm.
and then like how does that become a part of you where it's not all consuming, but you're able to continue to work towards the dreams that you've created for yourself as well?
To be honest, like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I got comfortable with knowing how to maneuver and navigate such encounters and questions until probably like after college. So, like,
Mm,
working adult. I think that's when I really started genuinely getting comfortable with who I am. Because even up until college, I do remember I was struggling, and it's a lot of the comparison game. Um, I think it's just like maturing and also just knowing boundaries between me and strangers, and like building up the courage and confidence in general to be like, I don't have to answer your question, because
yeah.
I get all sorts of random strangers asking me all sorts of things, and I used to be like, like extra smiley and like answer everything just because I didn't know what to do. And I was like,
Mm,
I'd get nervous and tense up. But now I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. I'm so tired. Like, I don't need to talk to you. I
yeah.
think it's just like, I don't know. I really think it came with age. I wish I had a better answer.
No, that sounds about right.
Yeah, like how I own up to this and not make my dwarfism take over my identity. I think it's really just age.
I think age does that to a lot of us.
It really does. Like, you just stop caring what people
Yeah.
think and say, and yeah.
Something else that you talked about was also that like it was never really talked about in your family. And that's kind of like a theme in Korean families of like communication in general. We don't really talk, And so
Yeah.
I guess like I would love to know, do you wish it was communicated differently growing up? How in general in the Korean community did you feel like that was something that you felt hard around, or was it more like that was your safe space? Yeah, just kind of like what the experience looked like specifically within the Korean community.
Yeah, I'll start with my family, I guess, or my
Mhm.
parents. I don't blame them at all for it because,
Mm.
number one, like you said, it's a very cultural thing to not talk about important things.
Yeah.
And then two, the language barrier.
Mhm.
I think they did the best they could at the time with their limited English and just knowledge of, moving into this country. Because I do remember my parents were kind of looking at different schools for when I was starting first grade and meeting with, the school administration, the teachers, or I remember like counselors as well. And she ended up picking the elementary school I went to, which turned out to be so good. And at that
Mm.
school, I do remember, I would have days where I leave class for a few minutes to go to the library, and I think it was the vice principal at the time. We would go through the top shelves of the books because I couldn't reach them. Like
Mm.
they took time to like take out covers, and then I would be like, I want to see that, and like
Mm.
so just things like that. And my mom didn't speak English well, but she would go to all those PTA meetings and whatnot and other PE, like physical stuff to talk about just arrangements for little Doris.
Mm.
So I think they did the best they could, but I think it kind of started to, I guess, maybe it like became a negative thing when you're a preteen, and then I start thinking on my own
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
start really comparing myself, and everyone's crazy when they're in middle school, like. So I didn't know anything about my condition, so I don't think that helped.
Right.
And then in terms of the Korean community, I feel like I could talk about this for hours.
We have ours.
um I don't know. It's like such a broad question. I think for negative things is, I would hear stuff like, how Koreans do like the, oh, woe is them, like Doris's parents.
Mm.
Like, oh, I feel so bad for her and her parents. But it's like,
Mm.
I was probably smarter than their kid. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I'm like,
yeah.
comments like that, like, oh, I feel sorry for her parents. And I kind of want to be like, I feel sorry for you. Like, your kid sucks. And then I think now that I am at the age where I need to get married, not need to get married, I want to get married. I do think about like mother-in-laws,
Mm.
being nightmare mother-in-laws, and just the stigma with, people with disabilities. Like Koreans, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm just gonna say it. They're not fond of it. They don't think it's a good marriage resume material because it's very about like how well you're doing your job, your parents, your health, and I
Right.
don't have good health, and I also do look very different, and then I also have this immense pride. I don't know where it comes from, so I don't want to deal with anyone I date. I don't ever want to hear his parents saying like, oh, we can't accept her, because I'll just be like, okay, bye. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
my parents raised me, so I think they did a good job. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, they did the best they could. So I don't really want to hear that because they did nothing wrong in terms of just doing their best. So I think it's just like thoughts like that. Like, I don't want to be judged by some ajumma because she thinks I'm like disabled and not worthy of her son. And I know that's
Mm.
for a lot of people can relate, disabled or not. But I think that just kind of adds another layer I think about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be judged by you, ajumma. You have like no right.
Yeah. Oh, I do love how you are able to say, like, I think that's why I also love following you because you say, I love hearing your thoughts and then you say it out loud too.
I do say some crazy stuff.
No, but I think I do love that you one like defend your parents too in the ways that you're proud of them for how they've raised you. And so I love hearing that part as well. And also making sure that, things that people could jab at you, like you don't accept. And that's so important to do.
Yeah.
Any positive experiences?
Yeah, I am so grateful that I am Korean. So it's like on the other hand,
Uh-huh.
because we are very like family oriented and tight knit, and the Korean community here is also like everybody kind of knows of each other. I don't know how Dallas is over
Yeah,
there, but
yeah.
I assume it's the same. The people I grew up with since I was like a kid, I don't know how else to say it except I just feel like I've been blessed with such deep friendship bonds where it's like family, and I credit a huge part of my, I guess, confidence to that, like
Mm.
my friends just having always been steady, I guess, steady and supportive, like sisters, I guess. So that's something I'm really grateful for because we're all like sisters, and I feel like I have a million good sisters in my life, which is
Yeah.
why I am the way I am despite society and how much I'm not really a fan of society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you do because I know one of your great sister friends,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If we think about back then and just like representation or education or knowledge on all the diverse people in our world, I don't think we were well informed, then. And so I think even when you visited Julie, she never made it some sort of like thing. You know what I'm saying? So like I
Yeah,
would say
yeah.
you're my first like dwarf friend I got to
Mhm.
know and connect with. And I think it also like when you speak about like the collectiveness of our culture and our friendships, like that speaks to your friends. And I think you have many of them, not just Julie, which is really cool.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
so grateful that he's blessed you with
Yeah,
so many
yes,
good
yes.
friends. So yeah, I
Me
think that's
too.
a beautiful thing to have on your side.
Yeah.
I think they're like really careful during like COVID times too to like go on like a cabin trip with you or something. I don't
Oh
know,
my
like
gosh,
that was
yeah.
something Julie had shared at one time at one point.
Yeah, so I don't know about the exact cabin example, but in general, like, yeah, I've just had, even if it's just like a dinner at somebody's house and we're all gonna go over, everybody is always just the last 3 years, they've been like, oh, Doris, I tested, by the way. Like, I didn't even ask them. Like, after a certain point,
Mm,
it's kind of, COVID kind of started disappearing for everybody. We kind of forgot about it except
mm,
people with chronic illness and
yeah.
underlying conditions, but everybody, my friends group, has just been more considerate than how considerate I am to myself. So
Aw.
I've had moments where I'm just like, oh, you didn't need to test, like, I'm just gonna triple mask, and they're like, no, I want to make sure you're comfortable, and I couldn't live with it if I got you sick. So they've just been like beyond considerate, and I don't know how to thank all my friends.
Well, I think you're also an amazing friend too. At
I hope
least,
so.
if not giving yourself the grace, you do. Yeah, you are. I can tell you're such a strong friend for those around you. So that's
Thank
encouraging.
you. I
As
hope
I just
so.
watch over social, yeah. But yeah, I think that I appreciate you sharing like the good things about our culture and then also the things that suck and being
Hmm.
realistic about that. I do want to talk about COVID just because you did end up getting it after like years of being super like protected from it. And unfortunately, during a time where, yeah, like you said, it disappeared for most of us. So it wasn't as much of a second thought anymore. Like,
Hmm.
what did that look like for you, especially when it wasn't as much of a concern for the general population?
Yeah, I was so frustrated, and I was doing therapy to at least vent during those sessions because I did find myself so frustrated to the point where I would just, have those social media tirades
Mm,
because I just need to release the anger. And I know that it's not, like one single person's fault. And I think that's what made this whole thing so frustrating because, just because I cannot risk traveling, I don't think it's fair if I'm like, nobody should, because
mm,
everybody still eventually, we got to live our lives. So I think I was just frustrated with the situation, and it's the most anxiety I've ever had in my life because
oh,
it was so unknown. Like, when is this thing gonna truly end? I mean, we still have COVID now, but I think it's the unknown factor with the indefinite timeline that made it so stressful. And I have never gotten so much white hair as I did the last
mm.
3 years. I don't think I handled it well, to answer your question.
Because you
Yeah,
had written like you finally celebrated yourself. It was your birthday, and like you're like,
mhm.
everyone was celebrating you, and then bam,
Yep,
COVID. I would feel
yep.
so frustrated in your
That's
position.
exactly what
Mhm,
happened. Like, I was like, you know what? I think the numbers have gotten a lot lower now, and most of my friends have gotten COVID already. So I think it'll be okay if I celebrate my birthday this year. And I finally did. And I did something I really wanted to do for once.
mhm.
And it's not like I threw a big birthday bash. It was like
Right.
6 of us. We went to a spa that I've been wanting to go for a while,
Mhm.
in the mountains. This super cute, like, lodge in the mount or waterfall mountain area. I had a great weekend.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, I'm like, okay, I started feeling sick and I got super sick, and it was COVID. I finally got it. And then I had to be
Mm.
hospitalized, and oh my Lord, Angie, it was terrible.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
know.
alive, so
I know, thank goodness. But yeah, I just can't imagine like how isolating that could
yeah.
feel. I think you had posted that's when like was that when Biden like released that it's not something like that, and I was like, oh, like just seeing your perspective is so like it's a reminder, right? Like we don't
Mhm.
I appreciate you on the other hand who's like we can't like stop people from living life, sure, but we
Mhm.
also can't remember that like or we can't forget that like we still have to be mindful and there are
Yeah.
still so many lives at risk. So I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
I think that's really, you summed it up perfectly. I think that's really all what I wanted, some acknowledgement and mindfulness, like you said. I don't expect, the world to act like they also have an underlying condition. Like, I know that's not realistic. I know
Mm,
the world doesn't revolve around me. I don't
mm,
expect people to not go out and do things and socialize and travel just because I have this condition. But I think it's really just like the mindfulness, because I was still in the hospital
right.
when Biden declared that it's no longer a pandemic. And then I also got an email from work, summarizing
Mm,
the president's announcement and saying we are also going to follow, whatever the government is. So we're not going to have these restrictions in the office anymore while I'm in the hospital.
yeah,
So I remember reading that email from work, and it honestly felt like a slap in the face.
right.
And it felt like a slap in the face when I read, Biden's announcement, because I'm like, I'm literally in the hospital right now, like getting treatment.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yay, it's not a pandemic.
Ugh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're healthier since then and everything. But yeah, just like thinking about how all of that came and like the timing of everything.
I know.
Thank you for sharing that. Is there
Yeah.
like other perspectives or pieces of wisdom or experience that you would also want to share being a little person or just things that like we might benefit from hearing? Like, I don't know, or just like flexing on your accomplishments too of Paris, right? Fashion week or something. Cough,
Uh-huh.
cough.
I don't know if it's wisdom or whatnot, but it just goes for anybody. Like, I think it's important you don't judge somebody in like the first 5 minutes you meet them or what they look like.
Mm,
And I think, right now there's a whole push for DEI, like, being inclusive
mm-hmm,
with all
mm-hmm.
these companies and whatnot. But like genuinely trying not to assume that you
Yeah.
know something about someone just by glancing at them, because I've had so many people assume so many things, and I'm just like, you're so ignorant, and like you're such an ass. Oh, I don't know if I can cuss, sorry. Um you're such an asshole for you to think you're that knowledgeable when you don't even know. And
Yeah.
I think that goes for a lot of assumptions about people with disabilities. And when I read stuff like that, I just get embarrassed for them. Because,
Mm,
even just something small like, you don't drive. How can you drive? I'm
mm,
like, are you dumb? Like, I have pedals. It's just even things like that. I'm like, you sound so dumb and ignorant. You have no idea,
yeah.
but people talk so confidently. And it's kind of funny because I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah. I actually remember like conversation you and Julie were having about maybe you were getting your license or something. I don't know. Did if that was a time of something about driving too, and I enjoyed learning too like what that looks like because more than assuming like, yeah, like just like learning what does that look like for each person whatever the
Mm-hmm.
circumstance is and like being able to just be better informed because we're all so different. And so I agree like that just you feel bad for that person who like just
Yeah.
assume something rather
Yep.
than like taking time to learn or
Mm-hmm.
ask or something, like have that conversation if possible. So
Yep.
yeah, that's a good reminder for sure. What are some other like common misconceptions or things that you would want to address on the podcast, even though it should be the responsibility of each person to put in that work and educate themselves?
Oh, this might take a while. Okay. Um,
I
the
love it.
driving thing, that'll be
Hmm.
one. And not everyone has little people parents.
Mm,
Majority actually have average size, average height parents. Don't ask me the science of the recessive. I don't know the genetics of it. I should, but I always forget and have to Google it. It's like some genetic mutation. It happens randomly.
mm,
There's nobody else in my family, and that's usually the case. And even if you are a little person, depending on the type you have, you can have an average height child or another little person child. Like, it's not, you don't automatically get a baby with dwarfism.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have friends that are short, but they have average height kids. Oh, and then, of course, the assumption that little people, women, can't have babies. That's a big one.
Right.
What else is there? I feel like there's so many, and now I can't think of it right now. Oh,
Mm.
I think another thing, this goes for all disabled people, like not just people with dwarfism. I don't know if you've heard of, we call it, quote, inspiration porn. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Mm. No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it's like a big thing with the disability community.
Okay.
It's when basically people with disabilities are just used as like inspiration porn for doing absolutely nothing but
Uh,
the average mundane thing like everybody else.
right.
And I remember I would feel so weird when so people who aren't my friends or
Mhm.
don't know my accomplishments, and they'd be like, "You're such an inspiration." I remember even at an early age, I would feel weird about that comment, and
Mm.
I thought it was just me being a pessimist as always and hating people. But when I finally saw, the disability community like coined that term, I just felt so seen.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
glad you were able to feel that.
yeah, it's just really annoying because when you don't know somebody and their accomplishments, but just by looking at them, like, okay, so like to make it easier, I have a lot of like Korean ajumas. When they see me like getting out of my car at H Mart or something and
Mm.
walking into H Mart, they'll be like, "Oh wow, like oh 너무 like 장하다." I'm like, "What?" Like all I did was get out of my car and walk.
Yeah.
So, like the reason why it's annoying and you shouldn't, participate in this disabled inspiration porn is cuz that implies then we should be at home curled up in fetal position crying and doing nothing.
Right.
Like you don't even know me, why am I inspirational? Because I drove and I'm walking inside H Mart. Like, if
Uh-huh.
somebody saw you doing that, NG, they wouldn't say that. You know what I mean? So
No.
why to me, like I'm just walking in the store. It's not a big accomplishment walking inside H Mart.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to feel seen in that sense where
Yeah.
even before it's like not blaming it on your pessimism, but like you're saying, oh, it's because I'm like this, that I'm
Mhm.
thinking of it in my way. Right. And like there is
Yep.
a sense of feeling guilt if we think in it like this or that, but that you were able to be surrounded in a community to know like, oh no, that wasn't me
Mhm.
feeling offended for no reason. Right. And like
Yep.
being able to see that that is like not something that should be encouraged, the inspiration
Yeah,
porn.
yeah,
So
exactly. Cuz I always just took it as like, God, why do I think so negatively? Like
right.
you're just being nice, Doris. Like, why? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'd be like, oh, I'm such like a mean, negative person. But
Mhm,
then,
mhm.
for example, I'm on the board for the Disability Empowerment Center in Seattle.
Oh,
And
okay.
one of the things, when we're doing events, when we're creating, like promotional material for events or whatever, or like one of the very important things we make sure is that we don't use images or taglines and wording that perpetuate inspiration porn. And I do think it's something that the general public isn't fully understanding of yet. So that's why I did want to bring it up. Like,
No, thank you.
I really hope like, everybody starts kind of recognizing that and to not do it if you catch yourself.
Right. I feel like we should all just like take time to reflect on what that might have looked like for any of our actions in the past. But anyways, now I'm just like thinking of my own. Like having conversations with like your closest friends, right? Like have there been ever times where you did feel offended by a friend that might have asked or assumed or something, and like what is it called, like a constructive conversation
Mhm.
might look like, so that like we can see what that part was.
I mean, generally for the most part, like I've been raving on, they're so great. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only thing I could think of is maybe like mid to late 20s. I started noticing even like very close friends, they would say things like, this is just an example, like I don't know, my friend's brother's cousin is moving to Seattle. He's single. who else is single? Like, I only know Stephanie. Like, I'm just using a nickname.
Yeah.
Susan and Stephanie, they're the only ones I know that are single, and I will be right there. So
Mm.
a lot of that stuff was going on, and that's a whole nother topic
Mhm.
for a different day, like the dehumanizing, like desexualizing people with disabilities. That's a whole
Mhm.
nother topic, but
Mhm.
I did notice people do that a lot, and it was very offensive. Not because I'm dying to meet your friend's cousin's brother or what, I think it was more upsetting than offensive because it made me realize, oh, that's even how my closest friends subconsciously see me as,
Mm.
like not fully equal
Mm.
woman like everybody else. And so I did bring it up with most of my friends. And, everybody was mostly very responsive. And it's like, not, they weren't trying to hurt me. But I still catch it here and there, like subconsciously. People still do it here and there. It's a little disappointing because I think it is kind of a reflection of your subconscious. So
Right,
I don't
right.
know. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we do need a whole nother topic on dehumanization in that
Yeah.
sense. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like we need a part 2 after like
I
maybe if
know.
people like listen to this and have like more questions too of like
Yeah.
wow, like because there's so many layers. Then what are some other things like that you are just so proud of as well? I know you have a beautiful, I don't know if you do now, but you have like that. I'm always amazed by your drawing skills. Like that's like I
Mm,
loved
thank
following that
you.
when you did that a lot more
Oh,
in the
yeah.
past. And then that
Yeah.
also became tied to when you did go to the fashion week, which was like, oh, it makes sense
Mhm.
that you would able to flex your skills like that too. But yeah, just tell me more about like passions or projects or whatever.
Yeah, I've taken art lessons since I think like first grade, and I've always loved drawing. I would enter all those. I don't know if Texas has. It was called like reflections contest every year or
Actually, yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like
I
things
remember
like
reflections. Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then
I
there were
never
some
entered
other.
any of those. I suck.
Uh,
Mhm.
and then I remember my first one in first grade was like this penguin, and it made it to state. And then my
Ah.
parents entered me in all these like other random like art stuff, and I still remember there was like a Korean American Association one. And anyway, so
Oh.
I've always been into art or drawing, I guess. And then I started drawing like the fashion illustrations that you're
Mhm.
mentioning, maybe like starting I think middle school or high school. But it was just for fun. It was for a hobby.
Mhm.
I do wonder sometimes like what my life would have been looking like right now if I actually went into like studying art. I do think about that, but I try not to regret it
Right.
and regret past decisions. But
What did you study?
I studied political science and LSJ, and LSJ means Law, Societies, and Justice. It's a department at my college.
Okay.
But I did have a minor in art history.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
most like Koreans or not Koreans only, but it's like, like a minor or like a little like dabble in the thing
Yeah.
you want to kind of really do
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then do something like safe or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. It's been a few years since I've picked up a pencil or the eye pen, and I'm
Mm.
worried that I'm not going to be as good anymore. I just haven't had any inspiration during the pandemic. I've seen a lot of other creatives also kind of say the same thing, like writers or art, like painters, whatnot. You see the ones that did make good use of the pandemic, like on social media,
Right.
but then there's like a bunch of us that were like on the other end where we're like, you would think we would do more because of the time,
Right.
but I didn't draw a single thing.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
What usually gives you inspiration when you are in your natural artistic habitat?
I mean, I think it's like a lot of people, just pop culture, celebrities.
Mm.
I was out more in general.
Yeah,
You're staring at the same four walls for 3 years. It's not
mm,
very inspiring. And
that's true. Yeah.
I'm a big traveler, so I did a lot of traveling, and I didn't get to do that at all. So
Okay, then we're gonna wrap it up for today, but maybe I'll see you back because I'm sure a lot of people could have questions as well. But I'm gonna ask you a few just fun get to know you type questions, and then we will be done. So the first one will be: if you could live in one city, where would it be?
Oh, like forever, right?
This is the Enneagram 4 not wanting to be like cut off from all possibility. Sure, yes, forever, so that you can have the answer that means the most.
Instinctively, I want to say like Hawaii or some tropical place.
Right, the ocean, you said.
Yeah, but I feel like things could go wrong on the island and I should be on the mainland. So I'm going to stick with San Diego because I love San Diego and I think it's a great place to retire.
Okay. I also feel like your wing five has become more a part of you as an like the cerebral side. Do you know, like the five is like the investigator? I don't know. Sometimes the more I feel like that's a huge part of you. Anyways,
Ah.
what is your favorite movie or drama of all time? Since you like to share that.
Okay, so my movie, first of all, is The Parent Trap.
Oh my gosh,
And
throwback. Okay.
yeah, I know I'm in my 30s and I love I okay, well, it's Parent Trap, but Parent Trap is my favorite movie, but I think the best
Love it.
movie is Titanic.
Okay, yeah.
My favorite drama is actually I don't know if you've watched the series, the Reply series.
Yeah, I get in trouble because I've watched one of them.
I feel like I like the least popular one,
Oh, okay, okay.
1994.
Okay, I cannot confirm whether or not
Okay.
that is the majority,
Yeah.
but gotcha. Okay.
I don't know why. I think it's just like my comfort drama. I watch it like once a year at least. I don't know. It just makes me laugh and happy. And I think it's so funny. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I love it. And the acting is so good.
Yeah. When you said Titanic, all I can think about is because we were younger, me and my brother were younger when we were watching it. And it's like that one scene where like the hand goes on and it like slides down. And we're just like, oh my gosh,
I know.
oh my
I
gosh. Anyway,
know.
it is a very top tier movie for sure. Okay. What is something on your bucket list that you plan to check off soon?
How soon
5 to 10 years. 5 to 10.
to publish a book?
Oh. Okay, I will. Yes, I would like to buy that and read it.
Okay, I will
Don't
keep
share
you to
everything
it.
today then, so that we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
read it in your.
Yep.
Are they called memoirs, or would it be a memoir? Would it be like a fiction book, or yeah, what kind of book would it be?
Well, the first one I would want to publish is fiction.
Okay, never mind. I was like thinking biographies
Yeah.
already. Oh,
No,
okay.
I would like to do like a memoir like when I've lived a little longer.
What is your ideal job?
Not working, can I say?
Yes, you can say
No,
that.
I'm just kidding.
Is it still
I
fashion something or no, not anymore?
no. Well,
Mm,
I guess that would be like designing for my own brand.
mm.
I think that would be an ideal job. Or right, just being a published writer.
One day will be your ideal job then, because we're gonna
Yeah, I hope
buy that
so.
first book. And if
I
you
hope
could
so.
describe yourself in a fruit, what fruit would you be?
I will go with a kiwi.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually like opposite of Harry, so I guess not maybe because they look very different. They look a little quote weird, and I think maybe because society might think that way when they first look at me like, oh, she looks so like different, and different can be translated as weird in general for society before you get to know somebody. And then when you cut open, it's
So
like
good.
it can be sweet or tart
Mm-hmm.
and mushy if you let it go ripe. And it's green, and I like green. Like sour and sweet. I think that kind of embodies.
You.
I mean, I don't think I'm sweet, but like
I think yeah, you're sweet
I
in the
think
sour way. Like Sour Patch Kid kind of
yeah,
kind of sweet, you know?
yeah,
Like yeah, I
yeah,
see that. I see that.
yeah.
Do you like the golden kiwi? Have you had a golden kiwi?
Yes, I love
They're
golden kiwi.
so good. Like I
I
already love the
know.
green regular kiwi and then I had a golden kiwi and I was like, "Oh my
So
gosh."
good.
I know golden kiwi is not green, but you could be the golden kiwi, you
Yes,
know?
I like golden. Actually, I might like golden better.
Right. Like the moment you
Yeah.
find that one, then
Yeah, 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 it's
can't go
so good.
back. Do you have a podcast that you do from time to time? No, or we're not doing that?
No, no, I do.
Yeah, tell us about it.
It's just been on a brief it's not brief. It's been on a hiatus because I think I said earlier I was like trying to get the groove into my new job, and I think I'm finally getting comfortable and am going to try to resume because I really do like talking about different topics with different people. So I do have a goal to get it resumed this year.
Okay, we will keep you to it. Can we know the name or not until it's out again?
No, yeah, you can. It's a shot of soju podcast.
And they like have a shot of soju before they talk about different things. Really cool.
Hmm.
Soju is for those that might not know, is like the Korean liquor, basically, the
Hmm.
representative drink, alcoholic drink of our country.
Yep.
But yeah, so they have different topics that they talk about. And so check it out towards the end of this year when they resume or catch up on their episodes from before.
No, I just want to say thank you for having me and letting me talk about this.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and having a great conversation. I had so much fun.
Me
Hopefully,
too.
we will connect soon, maybe in
Yes.
real life sometime if I can visit
Yes.
Seattle. That
Yes.
sounds good. All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed another episode of Kohler Commentary. Bye.
Bye.